You know that moment when someone asks if you're a dog person or a cat person, and you answer without even thinking? Yeah, that split-second response? According to Aristotle, one of the greatest philosophers who ever lived, that simple preference reveals something profound about your character, your values, and the kind of life you're trying to build. And before you click away, thinking this is just another dogs are loyal, cats are independent video, stop, because what I'm about to share with you goes way deeper than any personality quiz or zodiac sign compatibility chart. This is about understanding the fundamental principles that guide your decisions, your relationships, and ultimately, your happiness. I'm going to show you how a philosopher who lived over 2,300 years ago, someone who never owned a Labrador or scrolled through cat videos at 2 a.m., somehow predicted exactly why you connect with the pets you do, and more importantly, what that means for every other choice you make in your life. So whether you're team dog, team cat, or sitting on the fence, thinking, I like both, stick with me. Because by the end of this video, you're going to understand yourself in a way you never have before. Let's start with something you've probably experienced yourself. Picture this. You're at a party, or maybe you're on a first date, or just making small talk with a coworker. Someone asks the question, are you more of a dog person or a cat person? And here's what's fascinating. You don't really have to think about it, do you? The answer just comes out. It feels instinctive, almost automatic. Some of you immediately light up and say, dogs, absolutely dogs. Others get this knowing smile and say, oh, I'm definitely a cat person. But here's what Aristotle would tell you. That instant response isn't random. It's not just about whether you grew up with pets or had a bad experience with one when you were 6. That preference is actually a window into your ethos, your character, and the specific virtues you value most in life. Now, I know what some of you are thinking. Come on, it's just about pets. You're reading way too much into this. But that's exactly what makes Aristotle's philosophy so powerful. He believed that our character isn't revealed in the big, obvious moments. It's revealed in the small, everyday choices we make without thinking. The pet you prefer, the friends you choose, the way you spend your free time, the career path you follow. All of these are expressions of the same fundamental values. They're all connected to what Aristotle called your telos, your purpose, your ultimate goal in life. So let me take you back to ancient Greece for just a moment. Forget everything you think philosophy is, boring lectures, dusty books, abstract nonsense that has nothing to do with real life. Aristotle wasn't interested in that stuff. He wanted to answer one simple question. How do we live a good life? Not just a successful life, not just a happy life. A good life, a life of excellence, fulfillment, and meaning. He called this Eudaimonia, which translates roughly to human flourishing, or the good life. And here's his radical insight. The good life isn't about following rigid rules or achieving some perfect state of being. It's about developing the right habits, cultivating the right virtues, and making choices that align with your true nature. Aristotle identified what he called moral virtues, character traits like courage, temperance, generosity, and justice. But here's the thing. He didn't say everyone needs to develop the exact same virtues in the exact same way. He recognized that different people, based on their nature and circumstances, will emphasize different virtues. And this is where your pet preference comes in. Because when you say you prefer dogs or cats, you're not just stating a preference. You're revealing which virtues resonate most deeply with your character. You're showing what kind of relationships, what kind of interactions, what kind of life feels most authentic to you. Let me talk to the dog people first. And I want you to really listen to this, because I'm about to describe something you've felt your entire life, but maybe never had the words for. You prefer dogs because, at your core, you value what Aristotle would call philia, deep, meaningful fellowship, and companionship. You're drawn to relationships that are active, engaged, and emotionally transparent. You want connection that's immediate, enthusiastic, and unconditional. Think about what draws you to dogs. When you come home after a long, terrible day, the kind of day where everything went wrong, where you feel exhausted and defeated, a dog doesn't give you space. A dog doesn't play it cool. A dog loses their absolute mind with joy that you're home. Tail wagging like a helicopter blade, maybe jumping up, definitely making those happy sounds, looking at you like you're the best thing that ever happened in the history of the universe. And here's what you need at that moment, that unfiltered, unashamed expression of love and excitement. You need someone who's genuinely, obviously happy to see you. No games, no pretense, no holding back. As a dog person, you probably express your own emotions pretty openly too. When you're happy, people know it. When you care about someone, you show it. You're not someone who plays hard to get or keeps their feelings close to the chest. You wear your heart on your sleeve, just like your dog wears their entire heart on their face. Aristotle would say you exemplify the virtue of magnanimity in your relationships. You're generous with your affection, your time, your energy. You don't do half-hearted connections. When you're in, you're all in. Your friendships are intense, loyal, and committed. You're the person who shows up without being asked, who remembers the little details, who makes people feel seen and valued. But here's the other side of this coin, and Aristotle was brilliant at recognizing that every virtue has a potential shadow side. Your openness, your need for active engagement, your desire for reciprocal enthusiasm. Sometimes it sets you up for disappointment, because not everyone operates at your level of emotional availability. Not everyone can match your energy or your loyalty. You might find yourself hurt when people don't reciprocate with the same intensity you give. You might feel rejected when someone needs space, interpreting it as indifference. You might struggle in relationships with people who are more reserved or independent, feeling like you're always the one initiating, always the one putting in effort. And this is where Aristotle's concept of the golden mean becomes crucial. He believed that virtue lies in finding the balance between extremes. For you as a dog person, your challenge is to maintain your beautiful capacity for open, enthusiastic connection, while also developing the virtue of what he called patience, the ability to give people space to express love and loyalty in their own way, even if it looks different from yours. Now let me speak to the cat people, because your story is just as rich and just as valid, even though it's completely different. You prefer cats because you value what Aristotle would recognize: autarkia, self-sufficiency, and autonomy. You're drawn to relationships that respect independence, that honor boundaries, that don't require constant validation or engagement to remain strong. Think about what attracts you to cats. A cat doesn't need you in the same desperate, obvious way a dog does. A cat is perfectly fine on their own. They have their own inner world, their own agenda, their own sense of dignity and self-possession. They don't perform their affection or seek your approval constantly. And when a cat does choose to show you affection, when they curl up in your lap or headbutt your hand or do that slow blink that means "I trust you," it means something. It's not given freely to everyone. It's earned. It's chosen. It's special. As a cat person, you probably operate the same way in your relationships. You're not someone who needs constant reassurance or regular check-ins to know a friendship is solid. You can go weeks or even months without talking to a close friend and pick up right where you left off. You don't interpret space or silence as rejection. You see it as respect for independence. Aristotle would say you embody the virtue of sophrosyne, temperance, self-control, and emotional moderation. You don't need external validation to feel secure. You have a strong sense of self that doesn't depend on constant feedback from others. You're comfortable with solitude. You can regulate your own emotional state without needing someone else to fix it for you. You value authenticity over performance. You'd rather have one real, genuine interaction than 10 superficial ones. You can spot emotional manipulation or neediness from a mile away, and it makes you deeply uncomfortable. You respect people who have their own lives, their own interests, their own identities separate from the relationship. But again, Aristotle would point out the potential shadow side. Your independence, your self-sufficiency, your need for autonomy. Sometimes it can make you seem aloof or unavailable to others. People might interpret your comfort with distance as disinterest. They might feel like they're always wondering where they stand with you, whether you actually care, whether the relationship matters to you. You might struggle to ask for help even when you need it, seeing it as weakness or imposition. You might miss out on deeper connections because you're so comfortable being alone that you don't make the effort to engage. You might accidentally hurt people who need more explicit reassurance and communication than you naturally provide. Your challenge, according to Aristotle's golden mean, is to maintain your admirable self-sufficiency while also developing the virtue of generosity in expression, being willing to show care and commitment more explicitly, even when it doesn't come naturally, because you recognize that others need it, even if you don't. Now here's where this gets really interesting, because your pet preference isn't just about how you approach relationships with animals. It's a template for how you approach everything. Let me explain what I mean. If you're a dog person, you probably prefer jobs with high collaboration and team dynamics, living situations where you're around people, hobbies that involve groups or partners, communication that's frequent and explicit, relationships where people check in regularly, social structures where roles and expectations are clear. You get anxious when things are ambiguous or undefined. You like knowing where you stand. You prefer direct communication over subtlety. You'd rather someone tell you exactly what they're thinking than have to guess. If you're a cat person, you probably prefer work that allows autonomy and independent decision-making, living situations with plenty of personal space, hobbies you can do alone or with minimal social coordination, communication that respects boundaries and doesn't require immediate response, relationships where independence is maintained, social structures with flexibility and self-direction. You get anxious when you feel smothered or controlled. You like having options and freedom. You prefer subtlety and implicit understanding over constant verbal processing. You'd rather someone respect your space than demand your attention. See the pattern? It's not just about pets. It's about your fundamental approach to being human. Here's what Aristotle understood that most people miss. Your character isn't something you have. It's something you do. It's the accumulated result of thousands of small choices and habits over time. He wrote, "We are what we repeatedly do." Excellence, then, is not an act, but a habit. When you consistently choose certain types of relationships, certain types of interactions, certain types of environments, you're shaping your character. You're reinforcing certain virtues and potentially neglecting others. The dog person who always chooses relationships that require high engagement is strengthening their capacity for loyalty, enthusiasm, and emotional availability. But they might be neglecting their capacity for solitude, self-reflection, and independence. The cat person who always chooses relationships that respect autonomy is strengthening their capacity for self-sufficiency, boundaries, and inner stability. But they might be neglecting their capacity for vulnerability, interdependence, and explicit emotional expression. And here's Aristotle's crucial point. Neither approach is inherently better or worse. There are different paths to human flourishing. The question isn't which one is right. The question is whether you're developing a balanced character or becoming extreme in one direction. Now, I know some of you are nodding along, thinking, yes, this is exactly me. And others are thinking, well, some of this fits, but not all of it. That's actually perfect. Because here's what's happening. You're recognizing elements of your character in these descriptions, but not because I'm just making vague statements that could apply to anyone. I'm describing actual patterns based on real psychological research that correlates pet preferences with personality traits and relationship styles. Studies have shown that dog people tend to score higher on extroversion, agreeableness, and conscientiousness. Cat people tend to score higher on openness and neuroticism, which in psychology just means emotional sensitivity, not that you're neurotic in the colloquial sense. But Aristotle would say these modern personality categories are just different words for the ancient virtues he identified. Extroversion is just another way of describing comfort with active fellowship. Openness is just another way of describing comfort with ambiguity and independence. The reason this resonates with you isn't because it's generic. It's because it's true. You're recognizing your actual character patterns. And that recognition is the first step toward what Aristotle called praktike sophia, practical wisdom. Now, some of you have been waiting for me to address this. What if you like both dogs and cats? What if you don't have a strong preference? Aristotle would actually say you might be the wisest of all. Remember the golden mean, the idea that virtue lies in the balance between extremes? If you genuinely appreciate both dogs and cats, you're probably someone who has developed a more balanced character. You can appreciate intense, engaged relationships and value independence and autonomy. You can be emotionally expressive when it's appropriate and maintain healthy boundaries. You can commit deeply to people while also respecting their need for space. Or, and this is also possible, you might not have fully developed your character yet. You might be someone who's still figuring out what kind of relationships and lifestyle actually fulfill you. You're flexible, but maybe not yet focused. Aristotle would say that's okay. Character development is a lifelong process. The goal isn't to pick a team and dig in forever. The goal is to continuously refine your virtues, balance your extremes, and move toward flourishing. So now that you understand this, what do you do with it? First, recognize your patterns. If you're a dog person, notice when your need for engagement and reciprocity is creating problems. Notice when you're hurt because someone isn't matching your energy, and ask yourself, am I expecting them to be like me, or am I respecting who they are? Practice the virtue you neglect. Give people space. Trust that distance doesn't mean disconnection. Develop your capacity to be alone without feeling abandoned. Strengthen your inner stability so you're not dependent on external validation. If you're a cat person, notice when your independence is actually isolation in disguise. Notice when your comfort with distance is preventing deeper connection. Ask yourself, am I protecting my autonomy, or am I protecting myself from vulnerability? Practice the virtue you neglect. Show up more consistently. Communicate your care explicitly, even when it feels unnecessary to you. Make the effort to engage, even when you'd rather retreat. Recognize that your presence matters to others, even if you don't need theirs in the same way. Second, understand others better. When you meet someone with the opposite preference, don't judge them as wrong or deficient. Recognize that they're emphasizing different virtues. They're not trying to frustrate you. They're just being who they are. The dog person isn't needy. They're loyal and emotionally generous. The cat person isn't cold. They're self-sufficient and respectful of boundaries. Third, choose relationships and environments that either match your nature or challenge you to grow. Sometimes you need people who get you, who operate like you do, who make you feel understood. Other times you need people who are different, who push you to develop neglected virtues, who help you find balance. Here's what I want you to really hear. Aristotle believed that human flourishing requires community. He said, man is by nature a social animal. We can't achieve the good life in isolation. We need relationships, connections, and community. But he also believed that different people contribute different virtues to the community. We're not all supposed to be the same. The community needs both the dog people with their loyalty, enthusiasm, and engagement, and the cat people with their independence, authenticity, and self-sufficiency. The community needs people who show up consistently and people who respect space. The community needs people who express emotions openly and people who model self-regulation. The community needs people who create connection and people who maintain boundaries. Your pet preference isn't a judgment of your character. It's a clue to your particular gift to the world. Let me make this concrete for you. Let's say you're a dog person and you're in a romantic relationship with a cat person. This is one of the most common sources of conflict in relationships, by the way. You want to text throughout the day. They prefer less frequent communication. You want to spend most of your free time together. They need solo time to recharge. You want to talk through every feeling. They prefer to process internally first. Without understanding Aristotle's framework, you'd probably interpret this as, they don't care as much as I do. They're not as invested. They're pulling away. Something's wrong. But with Aristotle's framework, you can see they're practicing the virtue of autonomy. Their way of loving includes respecting both their own and your independence. Their need for space isn't about you. It's about them maintaining their character and not losing themselves in the relationship. And if you're the cat person in this scenario, instead of thinking, they're so needy, why can't they just give me space? They're suffocating me. Something's wrong. You can see they're practicing the virtue of fellowship. Their way of loving includes consistent engagement and explicit communication. Their need for connection isn't neediness. It's how they build security and intimacy. Once you understand this, you can find the balance. The dog person can learn to give space without interpreting it as rejection. The cat person can learn to engage more consistently without feeling suffocated. Both of you are growing toward the golden mean, maintaining your natural strengths while developing complementary virtues. This applies to friendships, work relationships, family dynamics, everything. Here's what most people don't realize. You're not stuck with your current character. Aristotle believed in radical human potential for growth and change. But it requires something most people aren't willing to do. It requires consistently practicing the virtues you're weak in, even when it's uncomfortable, until they become habits. If you're a dog person who struggles with independence, you need to deliberately practice being alone. Turn down some social invitations. Spend a weekend completely by yourself. Journal instead of calling someone when you're upset. Notice that you can be okay without constant connection. If you're a cat person who struggles with engagement, you need to deliberately practice showing up. Send that text checking in on a friend. Say, I love you, even when it feels unnecessary. Accept that invitation, even though you'd rather stay home. Notice that connection doesn't have to diminish your autonomy. This is hard. It goes against your instincts. But Aristotle would say this is exactly what moral development requires. The courage to act against your comfortable patterns in service of becoming more balanced, more virtuous, more fully human. So let me bring this all together. Your preference for dogs or cats isn't trivial. It's not just about animals. It's a window into your character, your values, and your approach to human flourishing. But here's Aristotle's ultimate insight. Knowing yourself is just the beginning. The goal isn't to justify who you already are. The goal is to become who you could be. The good life, Eudaimonia, requires developing all the virtues, not just the ones that come naturally. It requires finding the golden mean between extremes. It requires both honoring your nature and transcending your limitations. You can love dogs and still develop the cat's capacity for independence. You can love cats and still develop the dog's capacity for enthusiastic connection. The question isn't which pet you prefer. The question is, what kind of person are you becoming? What virtues are you cultivating? What habits are you practicing? Because remember what Aristotle said, we are what we repeatedly do. Every day, you're making choices. You're either reinforcing your existing patterns or deliberately developing new capacities. You're either becoming more extreme or more balanced. You're either justifying your limitations or growing beyond them. So here's what I want you to do after watching this video. First, reflect honestly on your character. What virtues come naturally to you? What virtues do you neglect? Where are you out of balance? Second, identify one specific virtue you need to develop. Just one. Don't try to change everything at once. Maybe it's patience if you're a dog person who gets anxious when people don't respond immediately. Maybe it's vulnerability if you're a cat person who never asks for help. Third, commit to practicing that virtue deliberately for the next 30 days. Make it a habit. Do the uncomfortable thing. Act as if you already had the virtue you're trying to develop, and eventually, you will develop it. This is how you move toward flourishing. Not by changing who you are fundamentally, but by becoming a more complete version of yourself. Here's what Aristotle understood that we've forgotten in our modern world. Your preferences matter. Your choices matter. Your daily habits matter. They're not trivial. They're not meaningless. They're literally constructing your character, shaping your life, determining your capacity for flourishing. The fact that you prefer dogs or cats isn't random. It's meaningful. It's revealing. It's connected to everything else about how you move through the world. And once you understand this, once you see the deeper pattern, you can't unsee it. You'll start noticing it everywhere, in how you choose friends, in what jobs you take, in how you structure your life, in what makes you happy or anxious or fulfilled. This awareness is power. Not power over others, but power over yourself. The power to deliberately shape your character. The power to move toward balance. The power to flourish. Aristotle spent his life studying what makes humans thrive. And his answer was simple but profound. Develop virtue. Practice good habits. Find the golden mean. Become excellent. Your pet preference is just the beginning. It's the entry point into understanding your character. But where you go from here, what you do with this understanding, that's entirely up to you. So whether you're teen dog, teen cat, or somewhere in between, you now have a choice. You can stay exactly as you are, comfortable in your familiar patterns. Or you can use this insight as a catalyst for growth, deliberately developing the virtues you've neglected, moving toward a more balanced, more complete, more flourishing version of yourself. Aristotle would tell you that this choice, this moment of decision, is where character is built. Not in the big, dramatic moments, but in the small, daily choice to practice virtue even when it's uncomfortable. So, what's it going to be? Are you going to stay comfortable in your patterns? Or are you going to do the hard work of becoming who you could be? The ancient wisdom is here. The path is clear. All you have to do is take the first step. And remember, we are what we repeatedly do. Excellence is not an act, but a habit. Start building that habit today.